Alrighty, so welcome everyone. My name's Suzanne and I'm the weight loss coach, and I have a business called SA Weight Loss Hypnosis. I'm a eating psychology coach, hypnotherapist, and an NLP practitioner. And I have recently met the lovely Kathleen Donhardt. Am I pronouncing your last name correctly? Yep, Kathleen.
Yes.
And totally inspired, fascinated and amazed by Kathleen's story around body image and how she's overcome it, and how she got to where she was. And I work with women on a daily basis to help them to lose weight and change their story around mind and body. And I just really wanted to get someone on, and when I saw Kathleen's story, I thought, oh my goodness, that so many of my clients will actually resonate with this beautiful person and what she's been able to achieve. So I just thought it was really well worthwhile sharing, and it's lovely to see that we've got so many people jumping in. So I'm still accepting people as we go. So if you are jumping in, can I ask that you please mute yourselves? And this is being recorded. If you'd rather not be on screen, then just stop your video. Now, throughout the next hour, I'm more than happy for you to jump in and pop the questions into the chat. We'll address them afterwards. If you don't know where the chat is or how to do that, if you navigate to the bottom of your screen, there'll be a little sort of a question box. It says chat. If you wanted to just jump in there and pop in hi, everyone will come up. I'm just going to go hi, so you know how to pop some, put a question in there, and then I will go and have a look at that at the end when Kathleen has finished speaking, and we can address any of your queries. So we've got, some things coming up there from Jenny. Hello, Kathleen.
Hello, Jenny.
So I suppose we'll get right into it. Kathleen, as I said, I was just totally amazed at your story, by your story, where you've come from and how you've overcome what you've done. Just as a bit of background for everyone, Kathleen and I have done the same eating psychology coaching course with the Institute for the Psychology of Eating, not at the same time. It's very much a worldwide based organization, and not very many people in Australia. So I was very amazed when I found Kathleen here, and not only is she Australian, but she's in Australia, like in near Adelaide.
Australia.
So where are you from? You're from
I'm in Mount Gambier now.
That's right. Yeah. So it's reasonably close.
Yeah.
So I went, oh my goodness, there's someone in our neck of the woods. And so I think really I'll hand it over to you, Kathleen. I just really would love to know your story and how you got to be where you are, and particularly how you came about overcoming the challenges that you faced. I think that's the thing that most of us are keen to find out more about.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me on and inviting me, and your interest. I've really enjoyed chatting with someone who gets it and has done similar training, like with the eating psychology, because it's certainly taken me to a whole nother part of life that I would never have been able to navigate without. I guess for me, when I first started, I was in a place where I had done quite a bit of healing from childhood trauma. I've always had weight issues. I've pretty much spent most of my life gaining weight. Was put on my first diet when I was 11 by a doctor following a car accident where I had a little bit of trauma with a broken knee, and he hated fat people, a doctor in the town, and he made no secret of that. So the day after the accident, he came in and told me that I'd put on a 1,000-calorie diet because I was too fat, and then I was kept in hospital for a month so that I couldn't eat. And that started my diet, my lifelong yo-yo dieting. From there, as I said, I just continued to gain weight, looking for diets, looking for something that would work. The most I ever lost was, I think, 15 kilos. And by the time I breathed out after getting off the scales at Weight Watchers, I was already gaining it back again and some more. So fast forward a few more years, I had started to do a lot of the healing that I hadn't previously done, which was specifically around the sexual abuse that I had experienced in childhood, with, and that was with family as well as GP, as well as other people that came into my life in my adolescence. I was a single mum at 17 and raised my daughter on my own. So from then it was like there was no time for me anyway. Like I had to learn to be a mum and get on with life and do the best I could providing for her. So it was a lot of years later that it was time to then look at myself and my health and do more healing and find more ways. So that's what I did. I joined up at the gym. I got a personal trainer because I figured, well, clearly I can't do it on my own. I need more accountability. So I did that. That helped me reach my heaviest ever. And I didn't know it at the time, but what was happening was the harder I worked, the more it hurt, the more punishing it was for me. And the whole time I was exercising, in my head, I was telling myself that it was my own fault and I had to just suffer through it because I'd let myself get this way, and therefore that was the price I had to pay. So I was constantly exercising, doing my best, hating every minute of it, liked how I felt at the end, but feeling like I was just being punished, and I was doing it to myself. I just didn't know that at the time. So it was then that my PT wasn't believing me when, I'd get on the scales for the weigh-in and I was starting to gain the few kilos I had lost. And she wanted me to do a food diary. And I said, well, this is what I eat. Like, I could tell her off the top of my head. She didn't believe me because it didn't add up with me gaining weight and only eating that. And so it was, back then I'd have a latte every day pretty much because I love my coffee. And I got to the point where I thought, maybe if I just cut that out, maybe because that was the only thing left that I could cut out that wasn't necessarily healthy. Perhaps I'll just cut that out as well. And some other voice in my head said, that's ridiculous. And then it was a chance meeting with somebody else who mentioned another method, which is about getting off diets. That resonated with me. And that night I went home, I read the book. By the next day, I've never read a book that fast in my life. And through that, I was then led to eating psychology, which by then I had stopped gaining weight. I hadn't lost any weight. So prior to that, I'd almost reached 140 kilos and was pretty miserable with myself. But then I stopped the dieting and I stopped gaining weight. So for the first 12 months, I gave up punishing exercise and I stopped all rules. I stopped all dieting. I got rid of all the no fat, low fat, just stopped it all and just ate whatever I wanted. So to me, that was a huge achievement because I'd finally stopped gaining weight. And that was step one. So that's where I was at when we got into eating psychology.
Wow. And it's so little known, and I've been a personal trainer in my past life, and it was not known then that weight gain was not just about calories in, calories out, and it was totally foreign. But now we know that this punishing exercise, it can be a stressor on the body, and that can cause the body to put on weight. And the fact that we're not eating also puts the body under so much stress, and we're constantly in fight or flight and survival mode, and we're constantly putting on weight, even if we're not even eating any food. So It's such but that's really part of diet culture, isn't it? That it's
Yeah.
not widely known, but we're told that, oh, we have to eat less and move more.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
just
that's what the doctors say as well.
that's
So
right. Yes, and it's just that's how they were taught, and
yeah.
fortunately now and thanks to the Institute for the Psychology of Eating, where we did our course, that all of that is starting to go out the window, and diet culture is very much something that is being played down and revamped, which is really good.
Yeah. And when I say punishing exercise, that's punishing for me, because what's punishing for me is not necessarily
No,
punishing for
that's right.
you. But and yeah, with the eating psychology, I guess that's where I also then realized that the question I was asking, which was, how do I get rid of this fat on my body? When I changed the question to, okay, so it won't move, it won't leave me, I can't get rid of it for, I've tried everything I know. It's hanging around for a reason, like someone that just won't go away. So I changed my question to, okay, so what do you want me to know? What do you want to teach me? What am I supposed to learn from you? Maybe if I ask that question, then it will tell me and go. So, and that was a game changer. That's when answers started to come in all different ways. And part of that was the eating psychology, which just, from the first moment that I read through what it was about, it was speaking to my heart for me. And that was really just about me helping myself. I didn't do the course to become a coach. I did the course because I wanted the information to know how to help myself.
Yeah.
So that was my initial response
And
to
what
that.
was it that you learned, Kathleen? What were the things, and how did you go about, go on that learning?
Yeah, so when we finished the training, for me, that was kind of when the training really started. I don't know if you experienced that, because it was pretty intense. 7-8 months of a lot of information and different way of thinking. And so it was about, okay, now we've learned all this information, how do I now integrate that into my life? And Mark David, our teacher, and for those that don't know, is the person who started the Institute for the Psychology of Eating. He started podcasts with students, and so I had an opportunity to get a one-on-one coaching session with him in his first series. So I did that, and that was where he helped me to understand from my story what was going on with my body. And so what we unpacked in that session was that, yes, I'd done the healing kind of emotionally, but what I hadn't done was brought my body up to speed. And the way that he explained it was that from a very early age, there was trauma in my life. I was born into a home where there was already domestic violence going on. So before I was born, there was trauma for me. And so, and as we've learned, that anytime there's trauma in the body, that signals a trauma response. So our body, quite amazingly, knows that means hang on to all the weight, because we don't know when we're going to be safe again, because it's that fight or flight thing, and or let's gain some more for protection. So he explained it that what was happening then was that's what my body learned to do.
Conceivably and then from the womb as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And so every time there was stress following that, it would signal that same thing. So, because it was over and over and over and pretty much a daily basis, it was, my body then developed its own habit. So it was just had its own thing going on. So then fast forward to me doing all this exercise at the gym, telling myself how horrible I was and how hopeless I was, and, that I deserved it all, was just signaling that stress response, because our
Yes.
body can't interpret it, what the stress is.
No, it's compounding it.
Yeah. So it was just telling my body that it needed to hang on to weight and gain some more to protect me. So it was doing this amazing job, but it was working against me. So when we unpack that, it was the first time that I learned that, okay, so I've done the work here. I now need to do the work with my body as a separate thing and bring the two together.
Yeah. Wow. And how did that come about, Kathleen? Because I've read you had a very unique process.
Yes. So what happened was I in my head, I had it that like, yep, I love and approve of myself, and I love who I am and all of that. And then this one particular day, I caught myself out looking away from the mirror as I walked past. Like, didn't have any clothes on, walked past the mirror, and I quickly looked away, and I caught myself, and it was like, oh, that's interesting. I was very quick to, like, I was avoiding looking, but I could spend plenty of time in front of a mirror doing makeup and hair. And so I didn't actually even notice that I wasn't really accepting and loving of my whole body. So that was then when I went, okay, let's not walk away. Let's come back and just observe what's going on. And, just observed how I was feeling, what I was thinking. And then thought, well, how do I do this? How do people do this? Like, we've talked about it a lot. I know there's been lots of conversations in the, eating psychology space,
Yes.
but how? Like, not many people talk about how they did it. They just talk about, that's what you need to do. So I happened to look down at my feet and thought, well, perhaps I could just start with them. I'll just start with my feet. And because I like journaling a lot, and that's what I've used for all my healing for nearly 30 years, is journaling and letter writing. I thought, well, it's worked for me on the emotional level. Maybe I'll try that with my body. And rather than, because I couldn't conceive doing, it just didn't feel real or genuine to be able to write a letter to my whole body and tell it how much I appreciate it, because the truth in that moment was I didn't. So that's when I broke it down and I started with my feet. And it's like, okay, if these feet didn't work at all, even though I didn't like them, even though I'd had issues with my feet as a child, more belittling from a specialist, calling them banana shape, and so more teasing and stuff from people, I didn't like my feet. So it was like, I'll start there. So I wrote a letter, and I thought about all the things that my feet still enable me to do, and all the things I've been able to do in my life with my feet working, whether they were in pain or not, they still got me places. And that was interesting in itself, because I then noticed over the next 24, 48 hours, all I could think about was all these amazing things that I've been able to do in life because my feet work and because I've got feet.
Yes.
So then I just moved on and went to my arms. It's like, yeah, I acknowledge the fat on my arms in my letter, and then also acknowledge that even with the fat on my arms, I've still been able to do a whole lot of things in my life. Like, I've still been able to, hold my gorgeous grandchildren, hold my own baby, and pretty much do everything, do the writing itself. Like, the list is endless. When we really start to think about it,
Yeah.
it's an endless list. And then I just kept going. And I went through all my body parts. I went through all my organs, and I thanked every part of my body. And then at some point, I did my whole body. But, it was a process over, I'd sort of do it every 2 or 3 days just to let it kind of settle in a bit, and then move on to the next part. And what I found was, like, this is actually feeling real. Like, I really am liking this body. And like I've said to you before, does that mean every day I wake up and go, yes, I love my body and every bit of it? No, I don't. Like, we all have days where we just feel crappy. So, but I still give gratitude to it, and I still write letters. especially if I'm feeling flat or not so good about it, or negative, I'll write letters. And then I'll write letters to my whole body. And then I'll write letters to myself from my body saying thank you. And what's been really interesting is the more I do it, the more I'm just gobsmacked at how amazing our body actually really is, because it's helped me to listen. Like, it's helped me to listen to what my body wants and needs. And it's that listening and being able to provide that you then start to hear your body talking back. Like, the first exercise that I did after not doing any for a year was yoga. And that was the first time I literally heard my body say, thank you. That's what I wanted. And I was like, oh, I've just done yoga. It doesn't feel like exercise. It's like, righto, that's what we'll do. And then, you know, and the weight started to come off. And I mean, even when I did the letters, I had actually already lost a significant amount of weight since then. So it's sort of, you know, like, it's a bit, I guess it's a bit like a ratchet effect. You got to do one bit and then do another bit and then, you know, come back. But it's, you know, now I just see it as it's a part of my health, and it's part of that maintenance, you know, because it's all parts of us.
Yes. But it's that connection, you know, you've been able to, that's the title of this evening, is Embody Your Body. You've been able to connect to it in a way that shows appreciation and gratitude, and just acceptance of that this is part of me, of who I am, and it actually serves a purpose. Because we know that, you know, that negative self-talk also compounds, you know, with the stress response and the survival response. And even, you know, people who will walk around and just really hating on what's going on down here, they live very much in their head, but just don't want to acknowledge what's happening down here. So we become very disconnected. But when what you're doing is really connecting in with your body, and, you know, acknowledging it, that this part is part of this part and they are connected. And, you know, listening to your body, which is just so foreign for so many of us, really. We're just so busy. We live in our heads. We just want to get from here to there, to there, to there. And that's it. We forget about what's happening. But, you know, I love what you said. My body just said, thank you for yoga. And that, you know, when you are listening, you can go, oh, that was great. I really enjoyed, you know, that felt good. And even when you eat a meal that you just go, oh, geez, that was good. Noticing the signals from your body, whether they be internal or external, or from food or movement point of view.
Yeah, and it's always like, more and more I'm noticing how much our language is, oh, how do I get rid of this? How do I get rid of it? Or how do I stop it? You know, how do, like, the, you know, the emotional eating versus the emotional need, you know, like hunger versus emotional needs. And it's like, you know, how do I stop that and get rid of that emotional hunger? It's like, well, we don't stop it and we don't get rid of it. We feed it and we listen to it.
Yeah.
And rather than being critical, I just, when I notice something now, instead of going, oh God, no, I tend to go, wow, that's really interesting. What's this about? You know, what could this be showing us? So it's, you know, like, it's changing those questions instead of going straight to the critic, because our body is listening all the time.
Yes. And it's asking a different question. What is my body really hungry for?
Yeah.
You know, whether, is it food? Is it, do I need to love it more? Do I need to talk nicely to it? Do I need to move it? Like, what really is my body hungry for? And I'll just read out in the chat here from Colin Bannister. I've been privileged to know Kathleen before, and during her transformation, it's been truly not just a visual change, but more in an emotional and expressive change. Her strength and ingenuity is to be admired and learned from. Isn't that lovely? And
thank you, Heather.
also, sorry, and she said the moment of asking, what is this teaching me, must have been a liberating moment. And yeah, you know, when we ask a different question, we get a different answer. And sometimes that's all that's needed.
Yeah, it had never occurred to me before, though, because we're so conditioned to just get rid of it, just die and get rid of it.
Yeah.
Part of that acceptance also for memory was about just accepting that, you know what, if this is as good as it's going to get for the rest of my life, then I'll be okay with it.
Yeah.
Because I you know, like, I don't want to be someone in my 70s still looking for that quick fix diet while I'm in pain and can't move, because I've gotten so big from dieting. Because as we've been fortunate to learn, diets are designed to make you fat.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, we want to stop the fight, the internal fight, and that's what diets are all about. That they just rob you of your life, and they just create this constant inner turmoil and fight about what they don't want, rather than working on, well, what do you want? And but it's such a, you know, we're not taught to ask the different question. We're always taught to, well, we need to get rid of this and we need to, you know, change that. But what do we really need?
Yeah, it's interesting how much of that we can just keep learning all the time from our body. Like, it's, I just find there's so much wisdom there if we're willing to ask the questions and create the space to listen.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. And, you know, if there were others in your situation, Kathleen, where would you advise them to start? We had the benefit of, you know, learning from our teacher, Mark David, and that was a process. Like, you know, it's a process of getting your head and mindset around a different way of thinking about food and the psychology of eating and the connection between mind and body. But you know, from your perspective, how would you get someone to start to begin to accept the body that they have, even if they said, I just don't like this body, I don't want this body, I hate this body? Like, where would you get them to start?
I would get them to, it would probably be creating space in their day where they can take some time to do something for themselves. And, you know, I've got a massive list of ideas of things that we can do that's just being mindful. Nothing about the body, nothing about, you know, getting rid of, nothing about food, nothing, like, just, let's just create some space first, 10 minutes, you know, like, and I know that, you know, like, I've also done a lot of study in changing habits and how to incorporate that into our life, and how to build that self-care that we need. And you probably hear the same thing too. People are like, oh, I don't have time for that. And it's like, I'm calling people out on that now, because in all reality, if anyone's on social media, they've got 10 minutes to spare for themselves.
Oh, absolutely. Totally agree. I mean, I always say 5 minutes, but 10 minutes, people will get lost in Facebook land for hours, you know, more than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's a choice, really, at the end of the day. It is a choice, but you need to know your why. Why do you want to do this? But looking at things from a different perspective and instead of trying to find extra time, it's bending the time that you have and creating something that is going to help you. So just having that space to just, you know, whether it's just coloring in, whether it's drawing, whether it's writing out an affirmation, or whether it's just acknowledging how you feel. I mean, there's an endless way to meditate that creates space, and we can do that even throughout our day. Just breath work is meditation. And, you know, it doesn't always have to be sitting on a cushion, you know, saying ohms for hours. Like, that's, you know, we've been a little bit diverted with that. It's not that hard. You know, and I used to teach meditation, and that was probably as soon as it's like exercise. As soon as you hear the word exercise, you go, oh, well, no, I'm not. No. I'm not doing that. Meditation, oh no, I don't want to sit there going for hours and hours, but that's not what it is. As we know, it's moving your body in ways that you love, and your body loved yoga. Meditation is really, as you say, just taking the time to breathe and be mindful. And as there are as many ways to travel from A to B, whether you walk, you fly, you swim, you get on a bike or whatever, there's hundreds of ways. There are that many ways to meditate, but really it's taking time for yourself.
Even just no better place than to sit in nature somewhere for 10 minutes and just look at it. And appreciate it for what it is.
And there's another message here from Serena. I've learned many things from Kathleen, but the biggest thing she has helped me find is a love for myself. I've also learned that self-care is a wonderful practice, and I am worth it. Yes, we are all so worthy of self-care. And this is one of the first things that drops off the list. If you're a woman in any sort of stage of your life, really, we become carers and nurturers, but we forget to do the same for ourselves, and all of a sudden we're on the bottom of the list instead of being on the top of the list. But that's also learned behavior. They're things that we copy what we know. And learning to love yourself is one of the big things, and that's part of self-care. And I guess that's where you have to start. Sometimes people can't start at that point. I love myself. I love and accept myself is something. And I remember I couldn't barely get those words out of my mouth when a coach, said to me, I want you to say that. And I struggled. I couldn't even speak it. Like, so foreign.
It was a lie, right?
Yeah. What am I saying? But it's about working towards that in small steps, baby steps forwards, but always thinking and working out, well, what can I do, rather than what I can't do, what can I do to move forwards, to spend some time with myself, on myself.
I think also that key is, when you want to go deeper, is to go back to when it first started, which is what we've been taught, like go back to where it all began, because it's not to be feared. Like we kind of, people tend to like, well, no, that's all locked away, but it's like, let's just unpack it and see what we can learn from that. That, there's some wisdom in that within ourselves, more than we give credit for, but we're so conditioned to stupid body, and it just won't do.
So much is in this, within us subconsciously. It's in the subconscious mind, and because our subconscious mind is, it's designed, it's there to protect and preserve us, and it only knows what it's been told. And so if we've been telling it, running a negative program for years and years and years, and sometimes it's even, from the womb, we're not actually don't have control of it. It just happens. And but it's not to say that can't be reprogrammed and changed, but the way to do that is, as you say, to find the learning. What is the positive learning that will allow you to let go of what what has been holding you back? Because if we're hanging on to all these emotions, anger, sadness, fear, hurt, and guilt, they're just sitting on our shoulders, emotionally, physically, and weighing heavily on our body. And then that's just creating the stress response. There's a question here. Can you please explain unpacking a bit more, from Brian? So I'll pass it over to you, Kathleen.
Yes, Brian and Tony. What I mean by that is, sometimes we can do it on our own. Sometimes we need to do it with someone else, and that's probably where we come in like with a coach or a psychologist or a therapist of some kind. So what I'm talking about is unpacking what was happening in our life as far back as we can remember, when the weight started to come on, or just before the weight started to come on. So often there's been some kind of event. It doesn't always have to be, significant, big trauma or abuse or anything like that. Sometimes it could be, I've worked with people who have just someone in the schoolyard made a comment once.
Mm-hmm.
It was only ever the once, and it wasn't significant. But when we start to dig a little around different things, it just comes out. And, I know myself at times, it's like, hang on, let's just go back to that. Tell me more about that. Oh, it was just, it hasn't, but then when we talk more about it, we find like there's a lot of emotional charge around that. And that's what our body holds on to stuff. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but
Yeah, it's
let us
getting
know
to the
if not.
root cause, really.
Yeah.
Unpacking is getting to the root cause of why we're thinking in certain ways, and oftentimes, these things always they happen as children, and our childlike mind doesn't have any wisdom around whatever it is. It takes it on as it is, and will create its own thoughts, behaviors, and beliefs about that. And that sense of whatever that is, if it's from a negative thing, we'll take that in the child's mind right through adulthood, even though we are a grown-up with more wisdom and life than this child. But this is still within us, in our subconscious mind, and decisions will still be affected as per the young child. Even though if we say, is that really true, we'll go, no, it's not, but that's what I think.
Yeah.
It's so ingrained in us that and that's what I do as a neuro-linguistic practitioner, NLP, that we let go of those old beliefs, those old negative emotions right back from childhood, and get right back to the root cause of it, and just dissolve all of that. So, you can look back on that event if you remember it, and there's nothing there. But the emotion no longer affects you, and it's the emotion that causes the stress response in the body.
Yeah. And like, I think it was Mark that often talked about, like our body is much like children, in that children are great observers, but they're not good interpreters. And our body does the same. It observes, but it doesn't know how to interpret it, doesn't know what the details of the stress is. It just knows it's stress. And that stress could be just a thought of how horrible our body is, or how much we don't like it, or like it doesn't have to be a whole lot, but it's just got to be enough that it goes and responds accordingly.
Yeah, that's right. So I might just open it up to any questions. We've had a couple of comments come through. Does anyone else have a question for Kathleen about perhaps maybe what's going on for them, or do they any further explanation of anything? Can't see anything coming up just yet. But I might just see, have a bit of a chat about embodiment, in terms of, what that means and how that can help, what we can do to be embodied. So we did touch briefly on being very disconnected from our body, and not really acknowledging what's going on, and therefore that affects our self-care. If we don't want to know what's going on here, well, we're not really likely to look after it. So some ideas around embodiment, and just getting in touch, and maybe asking those types of questions about, well, how can I learn to like what I have, the body that I have, or accept, or how can I get in touch with my body? And I suppose the immediate things that come to me are things like massage and dance, and yoga practices, those kinds of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that brings or invites joy and pleasure, we don't have to do a lot of hard punishing exercise to get our exercise. It's I made a commitment this year to do body groove. So every day I dance, and whether it's 5 minutes or whether it's 30 minutes, just being in that space, dancing like no one is watching, literally. And it's amazing how much you do that and you learn more about your body and how more it can move, because you do stretch it a little bit more. And
Yeah.
I have to admit, there are times where, again, like that feeling of embodiment is kind of going up a notch again, because it's like I'm actually really starting to feel the space in my body. Like, probably because there's been so many layers of weight, you don't necessarily feel as much. But as there's, as my body's softening more and letting go more and enjoying what I'm feeding it in terms of that emotional nourishment.
Mm.
Like a couple of days ago, I had this feeling and it was like, wow, this is actually, I'm quite enjoying being in the body. And that was something
Yeah.
a little bit different again. Um, and it's like, okay, well, let's give it more of that, because, that's what you do is like, if you like something, you have more of it.
Yeah. And it's like Mark says, being the curious scientist of your own body. And that's,
Mm,
excuse me, that's part of the listening of your body. What does it like to do? And I was talking to one of my clients today about dancing, and it's just, I tried it and I was exhausted after after doing
yeah,
some sort of
no,
crazy
right?
dance. But I was just dancing in my lounge room. I didn't get all the moves right, but I didn't care. I felt good, and I was moving and I felt energized, and I was laughing at myself, and it was just so much fun. But yeah,
Yeah.
you find, I think that is one of the forms of movement that you can do with love, and enjoyment, and laugh, and still, and feel your body, like really feel into
Mm,
where all the bits are, and how it feels afterwards, and just have that sense of enjoyment and laughter, and childlike sort of sense of fun. I've got one here. Dancing is good for your body and your soul. Yes, perhaps this is why it's so effective on all levels. Yes, I agree. Yeah, and there's so many different, excuse me, so many different types of dancing.
yeah.
That's something that appeals to everyone.
Yeah. And something else, even within that dance, that I found was a really empowering thing to do was, on one day there was a slower track, and we can just put on whatever our favorite music is, but
Yeah.
I put my hands on my body and didn't take them off for the whole track. So I moved them around so that I could actually physically feel my whole body all over.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
and I notice, and I do a lot of that, soft and gentle touch, which is really good for our skin, and it's really good for our body, because it's a way of just nourishing it. And it's not
Yeah.
quite the same as massage, where you're maneuvering and going in a
Yeah.
bit deeper. It's just that ever so light, gentle touch that helps you to feel safe, because, if we're safe emotionally, we don't need weight to be safe. And that's what our whole body is trying to do, is keep us safe.
Yes.
And it's when our body softens, and that's when it's going to let go of that protection, more than anything. That, and through that breath work. I think it was Mark that taught us that the question of, well, when we lose weight, where does it go? Like, how does it go? Where?
Hmm.
And it was, through sweating, through body excrement, and through breath. And it's like, so, and I think that's where, for me, that was what yoga was about, was teaching me how to really, truly breathe.
Yes, yeah, because it's the blood that pushes all the nourishment, nutrition through the body, and it's sorry, the oxygen, and it's the oxygen that burns the calories. If that's your main concern, even though calorie is just a unit of energy, it's just a way of measuring energy. But that's what fire, that's what keeps the home fires burning, so to speak. It's how much oxygen we've got in our body.
Yeah.
And that pushes the blood, the nourishment through. It'll burn the calories, it will give you the energy. It's just vitamin O,
Yeah.
oxygen
Yeah.
is the necessary essential. But so many of us don't know how to breathe properly. We're very shallow breathers. We just use chest breathing. And of course, when you're highly stressed, that's where we breathe from, just the chest.
Mm.
But if we introduce the deep breathing, and the parasympathetic nervous system switches on, and breath is the antidote to stress anyway. That's the relaxation response. And that's where, you know, we find when we're in a relaxed state, well, there's rest and digest, you know, where our body's working to its optimum capacity.
Yeah.
And that's simply all through breath work.
Yeah, and it's free, right?
Yeah, that's right. Haley said there is a great podcast on Crappy to Happy about breathing. Oh, that sounds pretty cool.
Thanks
you
for that,
Haley. Yeah,
it's good to know.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
I think, Suzanne, something else worth mentioning in terms of how it relates with embodiment is the scales.
Oh, ditch them.
Yeah, because sometimes we want that measurement, but and we're the converted, but jumping on those scales every day or every week to get a machine to tell us how we're going to feel is the quickest and fastest way to disembody, is in my opinion. If we're doing that first thing in the morning, instead of just going and breathing for 5 minutes, then there's no point, really. Like I just see that they do more harm than they ever do good. Like I know women in their 70s who get on that scale every single day, and it's like, what could possibly be any different between today and yesterday? Like, the scales can't measure what's going on in our life emotionally. The scales can't measure what's happening around us environmentally, and it underestimates how much all of that kind of stuff, like you were saying earlier, weighs down on us, and it shows on the scales.
That's it. And it shouldn't be a measure of our self-worth every day. You know, whether or not it's a good number or not so good number, for that to ruin your entire day. A piece of electronic equipment that, you know, is not accurate, you can put it at any, you know, I could put it on different areas of the floor here and it would give me a different measurement. You know, whether I'd been to the loo or not, it would give me a different measurement. Like, it's ridiculous. And you hear some people that's how they wait till they've gone to the loo and then they measure, or it's just that's like living in a food prison. It's totally unnecessary. But once again, diet culture, it's, you know, we're brought up with this this sense of judgment. We judge ourselves, we judge others based on what we look like and, you know, what the numbers on the scale say. But who would know, you know, externally what numbers are on our scales and whether or not we're, you know, worthy or not. We're the only person that does that to us. But it's learned behavior, and it's it's a pretty nasty culture to be in. And but it's quite addictive. It's difficult for people to get off it.
It's real. And I've never been a daily, you know, I never used to weigh myself daily, and I tried it for a while just to have the experience to see what would happen, and it was exhausting. It was like, you know, like getting on the scales so that you can find out what, you know, so that you could decide what you were then going to allow yourself to eat for that day. It's like,
it's totally demoralizing. I've just got a message here to say looking for NSV, non-scale victories, is great. For example, this is from Chav Ella. E.g., the black pants fit better. I walked faster around my walking path today. I feel more energized.
Awesome.
Question: what advice would you give to people on how to start their journey? How has the medical and sports practitioners helped or harmed your progress?
For me, the medical sports practitioners, it's a mix. I guess it's more, it's been a negative experience for me, but that's only in my body from my experience. It's not anything that they've done wrong. Like, I understand that's how they've, you know, that they've been taught.
Yeah, they don't know any different either.
No. So, you know, like I can't honestly say I've ever been belittled. Like when I lived in Adelaide, you know, like I used to go to the gym a lot, you know, it would be 3-4 times a week. And I loved it, you know, like I loved being a part of being healthy, you know, so my demons were going on in my, you know, within myself, you know, and I can't say I've not learned anything from them, because I have, you know, like there's a place, I think. And there are some aspects even now of, you know, every now and again I think, oh, maybe I'll just go back. My body goes, hell no, we're not going there. But, you know, like I think if it's positive and it has all the, you know, all the stuff that we've talked about and teaches that embodiment as well, then great. But for me personally, yeah, I think the only thing was that last PT that I worked with, had she had the knowledge to say, well, let's just look at what else is happening here, that might have been more helpful. But you know, it's not their training, so
No.
you know, yeah. So it was, my negative experience of the gym was more about, and trainers, was a whole lot more about what was happening in my head, you know, like that, you know. And I get that, you know, when you're complaining, because I used to do that too, like complain when you're working out, and my PT would then say, oh, well, you know, like just get through this set and we won't do 3, we'll do 2. And I would get angry at that, because it's like, I'm not doing less, like you need to be pushing me to do more, you know. So it's yeah, whereas I guess if we had people teaching that could understand that for people who are big and have weight, some things aren't just an excuse, you know. When we're saying it's painful or it hurts or it's not fun, then that's going to have a negative impact on us, you know. Like running around a court or running anywhere, for me, is just like, I don't want to do it. Like my body hates it, you know, like it always did and it always has. Like I just, you know, but yeah. And I'm sure there's more around now that you know, much more tailored to the person themselves, rather than just that cookie cutter approach that here's your, you know, here's your session and here's what's worked for everyone else.
And I guess, as you know, as consumers of a service, we have the option of going out and finding lots of different ways and experimenting, being, you know, once again, being the curious scientist, comparing, trying out different things, and just going, well, if I'm not happy with this, you know, what's going on with this sort of diagnosis, if that's what it is, well, get another one. And if that you're not happy with that, we'll get another one, because we have choice. And it's okay to ask a question, and it's okay to be informed. You know, we have the information now to be more informed of what's going on. And yes, I don't recommend doing Dr. Google, but I don't, you know, there are some things out there that you can look at and just go, oh, well, maybe, you know, let's consider a different approach, or maybe, you know, we can try something else. But there is so much out there, and it's really about doing things that work for you and your body, and how you feel, and asking questions.
Yeah, and like you said, you know, do your research, but with that curiosity, because what works for everybody else may not work for you. Like it's that, right. You know, I wonder, you know, be curious, sit with it, see how it feels, and be empowered. Like, and I think, I know for me, not that I go, not that I'm not into doctors, unless they're of Chinese medicine, but it's, you know, I know with that embodiment, like if I went to a doctor now, I wouldn't accept being told that we're going to talk about my weight when I'm there for something to do with my skin. You know, like you know, it's, and I think that's important as well, about, you know, the more embodied we are and the more kindness we give to our body, the more we can trust it and the more we can have that confidence to say, well, actually, that's not what I'm here for, or that's not helpful.
Mm.
Like, you know, if you're there and you're asking questions, don't add to the criticism, and don't accept, like you said, just one answer as the answer. Like, be willing to go to somebody else.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Not to get what you want to hear, but to get what
No.
feels right to you for yourself,
Yeah.
to give it a go.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. That's right. Oh, okay. So it's just about 8 o'clock. I think if anyone has any other questions, I'll get you to pop it into the chat now. But Kathleen, I just want to say thank you so much for a very informative evening. The last hour has just gone
Hasn't
just
it?
like that.
We could talk about it for hours.
Yeah, I know. But I really, really enjoyed our chat tonight. And I think the people that have come along, thank you so much for joining us, have you know, gained a lot from your viewpoint and what you've been through. Chavella says, a wonderful conversation indeed, such gentle souls you are. Thank you. Oh, that's very kind.
Thanks, Liz.
Yeah. So we'll leave it there. This is being recorded, so I will share the recording with you, Kathleen, and then you can put it out to your community. But I'm just going to turn it off right now.
Wonderful, and thank you.